Welcome to Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen. I am your host, but I do not host it by myself, Mike.
How you doing, Cary?
I'm all good, Mike. And Mike, I have a co-host, Michael Duarte over here. We actually call him the Silver Fox, guys. Can you figure out why?
Oh, it's that beautiful silver hair.
That's what it is. I won't tell you where we got the name, but we'll leave it at that. Before we go anywhere, it's a special. Yesterday was a special day.
I heard it was.
Wasn't it somebody's birthday yesterday? Wasn't it our board ops birthday?
Justin.
Wasn't it your birthday yesterday, Justin?
Justin had a birthday, yeah.
It was my birthday.
So we just from Michael and I and Alice and Phil, we love you, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you very
much,
much. Happy
Cary.
birthday.
I
And thanks
appreciate it.
for all you do, right?
I appreciate you guys.
So, but Action is brought to you by your local hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We've been on the air almost going on 14 years soon.
Right.
So it's
We're counting down.
We're counting down. So a long time, and also by Action Family Counseling, which is alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers, and then the Action Family Foundation. Mike, I'll let you talk about that.
Cary, you know you've been here. I mentioned this last week, but you've been here every Monday, most Mondays. You've missed few for this show, and you are also someplace else on Tuesday nights. Every Tuesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. for the free parent support group at Kenyon High School.
I am. I'm there. Come and see us. In fact, don't come and see us this Tuesday because the school is having an open house. So we'll probably be at Vincenzo's Pizza.
Oh,
We're going to be eating tomorrow. I know. I better get there early and order a salad. What do you think?
That sounds good.
I've just got a text from Delise Diaz, one of the best therapists up here in Santa Clarita, but she was saying she's listening to the show, and I promised her and some other people that in 6 months, abs.
Oh.
So no pizza for me tomorrow.
All right.
And there you go. So
are you getting some of those Hollywood type that you just super glue to your stomach?
That would really be easy.
Are you going to actually?
I was at the gym the other day, and I was saying, why does you work so hard to try to look good? It's just like crazy. You know, I got my phone going here. So, anyways,
well, good for
there
you.
You go. Don't you have some action? Let's before you do your action items, let's introduce our guests and then have them part of everything. So I'll let you go.
As you have said the last time that they were here, which was almost a year ago, well, maybe it was a year ago, Alice and Tom Reynolds, who are one of our favorite guests.
Oh, you say that to
Two of our
everybody.
favorite guests. I was trying to think of the math on that. You're two of our favorite guests because there's two of you. But, you come here to talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, and that is the Youth Grove in Central Park. And we're going to get into explaining why it's near and dear to your heart a little bit later on the show. But welcome. It's great to have you on Families in Action once again.
This has been like, how many years have you been on the show? I think almost every year we've been here.
Yeah, 16 years.
And you've been on our show. We've been 13, so I think you've been at least 13 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
And more because we've done other stuff.
Right.
So Michael, our action items, sir.
Well, just before I get into the action items, Cary, I have a question for Alice and Tom. You ready for this? You didn't know you were going to be getting quizzed.
No,
I'm usually quizzed every day.
What happens
Did I say Phil
every
earlier?
night?
I apologize. I said Phil earlier. I was talking to a Phil right when I got here. So before we go anywhere, I have to say I'm sorry.
We exchanged glances over that, but I wasn't going to embarrass you. I figured you'd catch on to it.
I did. It's right after I said it. I said,
That's okay.
Anyway, what happens every 19 minutes in this country? Do you know? I mean, there are a lot of things that happen, but one thing in particular, every 19 minutes in this country.
I'm sure it's a death of a young person.
Well, you're not far off. It could very well be.
She's actually right.
The CDC, Center for Disease Control, tells us that every 19 minutes, someone in the U.S. dies from an accidental drug overdose. So during this show, 3 people will lose their life. And that's a fact. Isn't that sad?
That's very sad.
I mean, we're going to talk about lives being lost in the Youth Grove, but this is another way.
You know what? That's kind of older statistics. I really would like to see the numbers now with the explosion of the fentanyl deaths.
Well, you're right. There could very well be more now.
Oh, it's definitely more.
And that's part of the action file here. First of all, Cary, listen to this. How bad is the opioid epidemic? Now, we talk about it every week, and you've been screaming about it for years.
I've been screaming it for almost 10 years that it's going to be horrible, that we better pay attention, that we're losing our kids, that it's going to be worse than the 70s.
Well,
and right now, it is.
Listen to this. The opioid epidemic has been called the worst drug crisis in American history. Death rates now rival those of the AIDS epidemic during the 1990s. And
my
with
gosh.
overdoses from heroin and other opioids now killing more than 47,000 people a year, the crisis has led to urgent calls for action. And Cary, that speaks to what you've been doing lately. You've been doing a lot of television out there about this very thing.
I have. Actually, if you watch, I'll be on Channel 7 News doing an intervention on a heroin addict. I think it's this week. I'm not sure on the date. And then I've got 2 interventions on the Rob Irving show, and a third one I'm doing this Thursday. So I'm all over it right now. As I'm screaming as loud as I can. And no better way to do it than the media, because it reaches
absolutely.
lots of people.
Yeah.
So I'm really on a mission. We have got to stop these kids from dying. And it's not even in education, because they already know they're going to die. I'm talking to these heroin addicts, and I'm saying, you're playing Russian roulette, and they're saying, yes, we know.
So how do you get through them if they already know it?
The deal is well, you got the people that say, it's not going to happen to me. I know how much to
That
use,
invincible.
and that's a bunch of crap. Excuse my language, but you don't know how much to use when you're shooting fentanyl, because you don't know how much is cut with. So that's one thing, and the other thing is they know that it's Russian roulette, and some of them have death wishes anyways because they don't know what else to do, and they're so stuck into that whatever world, and others, they just don't know how to stop. And we have to figure out ways here in our country to do different kinds of treatment, to get Medi-Cal and all those kind of places to pay for treatment. Because if they're not paying for it, people don't open their doors. So we have so few places that are free for people that have no money. I mean, obviously, Action, we take insurance, and I do a lot of free beds and a lot of whatever, but we can only do so much. And, there's county beds out there. But in order for somebody to get into a county bed, they have to be detoxed. So these poor people, they stop shooting dope or whatever it is they're doing, and they're laying in a corner throwing up and diarrhea, and I can go on for days, feel like they're dying, and it's horrible. So we really are in the midst of a crisis, because once they start using, you can't stop until you're detoxed medically. So it's really a catch-21 right now. It's a mess.
And here's the second action item, Cary, and this speaks to exactly what we've been talking about again. And we talked about this one specific drug a couple of weeks ago, and you're going to remember this as soon as I mention it. But first of all, Cincinnati sees an estimated 78 heroin overdoses in 2 days. Now, the important
Say
thing
that
to remember,
again?
Cincinnati sees
But
an
are there-
estimated 78 heroin overdoses in 2 days.
Aren't we every week saying a different city?
We are.
Every
Exactly.
week.
Exactly. It's happening across the country, and it happened here in Skid Row in Los Angeles.
That
with,
was just
Spice.
that was just on Spice.
happened. Right, exactly.
Spice,
now,
yeah.
Another drug we've been screaming about for a long time.
this one is going to seem bizarre, and I know you're listening out there, and when you hear this, your jaw is going to drop. This was so bad that Hamilton County officials in Cincinnati say they will need to be seeking funding for treatment and expanded response teams to deal with this. Here we go.
Yeah.
The emergency rooms estimated they had 174 suspected opioid overdoses cases in 1 week, including 3 deaths.
170 something in a week.
Last year, accidental drug overdoses killed 3,050 people in Ohio, an average of 8 per day, state officials say. But it gets worse than that. Cincinnati City Manager Harry Black said authorities suspected carfentanil, a drug used to sedate elephants and other large animals. Now, that's what we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
We had an action item
remember.
about this showing up.
It's
Okay,
almost 100 times stronger than heroin.
Exactly.
A normal fentanyl is about 50 times. This is even stronger
That's
than
correct.
that times 2.
That's correct. Now, what's happened is it's been mixed in with heroin, and it's caused the overdoses. So, as you said, the drug is 100 times more potent than fentanyl. Wow.
Than heroin.
Last month.
Than heroin.
Yeah, than heroin. No, this is 100 times more potent than fentanyl, and fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin.
Wow.
So that's a recipe for death, period.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Last month, carfentanil was discovered in the Cincinnati area's heroin stream, but many hospitals don't have the equipment to test the blood for the previously uncommon animal opioid. My goodness, they can't even now, Cary, they use Narcan, is that right?
Yes, they
to
do.
reverse it, but in the cases of this
some
stuff,
of these drugs, yes, you need more than, it's not going to work.
up to 4 doses if they
Right.
can even get it to work.
If they can even get it to work. And you know what? Just for everybody to know, overdoses and just for first of all, anyone that's living with an opioid addict, if it's pills or heroin or whatever it is, have Narcan in your house. You can get it. You can order it from Walgreens and stuff like that. You need to have it there because it is life-saving. It's a life-saving drug. It actually, what it does, it allows the addict or the person that is overdosing to breathe while they're overdosing, which then turns around. You know what I mean? Makes it so they get better.
Right.
But the problem with that is some of these stuff that's here overdoses. People think happens like that. And that happens sometimes. You could shoot and die. But most overdose happens within a 2-hour period. And that people don't know. Your heart slows down real slow and up to 2 hours before it actually stops your breathing. So you can actually, on most overdoses, see it coming. So people really need to pay attention to what's going on.
Well, if you're listening to this show right now, you know why we do this show every week. This is insanity. We have a situation here that has become worse than the AIDS epidemic. And when the AIDS epidemic hit, everybody was talking about it. We have to do something about this. We have to do something about it. So now here we are with the opioid epidemic, and we're in worse shape.
The opioid epidemic, let's just get it straight. When we say opioid epidemic, we're not saying just straight heroin. We're saying Vicodin, Oxy, Roxy, all the Percocet. I can go on for days. Most people don't wake up and become heroin addicts. They start with something else. It was whatever. You got two addicts. And of course, the potheads that go from pot to speed to crystal to this to heroin, and then they're a mess. But we're treating many, many accidental addicts today that are dying, that had surgery, something happened, they were taking pills, before they know it, they were physically addicted to that drug, and now we have a crisis.
Right.
So we're treating two different kind of addicts.
And it's very easy to get hooked if let's say you go in for major surgery, which I did,
right,
and my doctor gave me
I remember you gave them to
oxycodone.
me to get rid of.
And
right.
and exactly, because you use them when you're teaching
Yes, I
groups
do.
out there, and I knew that, and so
Right.
I wanted to get rid of them, and I wasn't going to flush them down the toilet. I knew that was wrong.
Yeah.
But my doctor, thankfully, and I already knew this, but my doctor said to me, Mike, only take this if you absolutely need to. If you can use something else like aspirin or something like that, then do that.
Well, these pills are wonderful. Let's get it straight. When somebody has surgery or a tooth being pulled, this stuff works. And take that or Soma, for instance. I was talking to one of our docs at the hospital. These are great drugs for a few days. But after you start taking any of these, and I'm going to throw Xanax and Ativan and all that stuff in the mix, because after you take these for any kind of extended period, your body becomes physically dependent on those drugs.
Yeah.
When you try to stop, you get sick, which then also tricks your mind to think you have more pain and you still need these pain medications. Right. So it's a real double-edged sword, because you got to figure out, is it really pain or is it I'm detoxing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Cary, it would be real easy for somebody if their doctor didn't say anything to them about it. Just say, "Here's your pain pills."
Well, we have to educate docs too, by the way.
Exactly.
And we really do. And
Right.
I don't want to blame doctors. People want to blame. I do not want to blame doctors, because doctors want to treat pain. They don't want people hurting. And if somebody comes in and says, my back is hurting, you can't see pain. So what do they have to do? They want to take that person for their word. We do have programs now called the Cures program and stuff like that, where they can go on the internet and really see how many pills and if they're doctor shopping. So there are stuff in place now that's going to help doctors make better decisions when treating people.
And pharmacies as well. And we talked about that here on the show, where they're actually setting up a database where they can actually track if somebody is abusing, and then they can give them some education, and they can also let the doctors know as well. But what I was saying, really, besides the fact that the doctors need to be very careful, is that it would be easy for somebody to say, boy, that makes me feel pretty good. I think I'd like another one, even though I don't quite need it now.
Right,
It'd be very easy to get hooked.
Well, here, when somebody's, I want to get to the other part of our show,
Yes.
but when somebody is in a hospital, for instance, and what we do is we ask them in the hospital on a scale from 1 to 10, where's your pain? If somebody's really hurting, they're going to say 10. But for somebody to be at 10, they shouldn't be able to walk, talk, or breathe almost. And
Right.
that's how bad a pain is. If you're really lying in pain, it's probably more of a 6. But then, as they say that, then the hospitals want to make them feel better, so they give them more drugs. So even accidentally in hospitals, we're turning out people that are addicted to drugs because you're shooting them up with morphine or whatever it is. They're there for a week. They discharge on Vicodin. Now, when it says 1 every 4 hours, that's not even close to what they've been getting in their arm. So they got to take 2 or 3 anyways. So it's really it's something that everyone needs to be educated. I know Henry Mayo, Pam over there, they're doing an extremely good job when it comes to education and pain management and that kind of stuff. So it's good stuff's happening.
Wow. Well, time to transition to what we're going to talk about today, which is the Youth Grove Evening of Remembrance. But again, I want to welcome Alice and Tom to Families in Action with
I'll
us
call you
again.
Phil. No.
He'll call you Phil. And pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Anyway,
Dr. Phil.
before we get into talking about exactly what's going on at the Youth Grove with the Evening of Remembrance, let's set this all up with what in the world the Youth Grove is all about. And I'll let you describe the Youth Grove to us, Alice.
The Youth Grove is set up at Central Park. It's in the back area there. It's among a set of tall trees. It was built, this is our 11th year. It was built by the Blue Ribbon Task Force. It was idea of a young teenager back then. She had a friend killed in a alcohol-related incident, and she actually had several friends killed in different drug and alcohol-related incidences. And she was just tired of her friends being killed in driving-related incidences, and she went to Frank Ferry, who was a council member at the time, and I can't remember if he was at Saugus or Valencia at the time. And he came to the Blue Ribbon Task Force, and Blue Ribbon Task Force was made up of parents who Tom and I were on the committee. Also, it's made up of community members.
Cary and I were there.
Yep, Cary and I. Cary and you, sorry.
Cary and I.
Cary and you were on the committee
And
as
you,
well.
you're right.
And us. City workers as well. And so anyway, we heard her, Frank's representation of what she had in mind, and we said, oh yeah, we really like this idea, formed a subcommittee, and worked really hard to get it built. Took us about 5 years.
Here's what's neat about the Youth Grove. The concept that somebody came up with to have the tree stumps, and the tree stumps they're cut short, and it's symbolizing the fact that we had a youth whose life was cut short. And they say the phrase, forever 16, forever 14,
Right, yeah.
forever 13, which brings it home.
Right.
And when you walk into the Youth Grove, all these stumps are there with the plaques honoring the individuals whose lives were lost. And if I'm correct, I believe they have an audio experience that you can take over there in an iPod form or something
Yes,
like that,
we-
where you can actually find out about the people who are being honored there. So it
Right, right.
personalizes it quite a
Yeah.
bit. So it really makes the Youth Grove a very powerful resource for parents.
It's a powerful, and there's a pledge in the center that the young lady and the mom came up with, and we kind of tweaked. So the center has a pledge, and it's called just no more. In other words, no more as far as knowledge, no more, so that no more lives will be lost, and no more stumps will be added there.
You brought this up, and I wanted to take a moment to read this
Sure.
because this is powerful, and it really helps set the stage for this.
Before you do that, you guys have 2 children at the Youth Grove.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Sure.
I mean, even though I always go, oh.
Yeah, our whole involvement back then started because our 2 sons were killed in a car crash. It started on February 17, 2000, when we got a knock at the door, and I answered the door, and there was 3 teenagers there, and they were telling us that our middle son Tim, who was 18, was basically, they said he was dead, and I kept saying, I don't believe you. You know, this is a joke. I didn't recognize the 3 of the kids. It was 2 boys and a girl. And I just kept saying, you guys, this is it's not funny, this is a joke. And they kept saying, no, Mrs. Reynolds, we saw him, we were there, we saw him. So I got to the point where I really thought, they must be serious, and I started screaming. My husband was in the garage working on Tim's car. He came in and he said, what is going on? And I said, they say that Tim is dead. He was in a car crash. So we grabbed our coats and proceeded to where it was. It was just a short distance away on Sand Canyon and Soledad, and the traffic was just horrendous. It was taking so long to get there. I just jumped out of the car and started running to get there, and a sheriff stopped me and said, where do you think you're going? And I said, my son is supposed to be in this car. I have to get there. And so he let me get out of the car, get a little bit closer. And then my husband finally made his way there. We got to a little bit closer, and I told the sheriff that I think my son is in that car. I have to go see him. And they said, no, you can't. And I said, I need to know where he is. And there was another parent there, a mother or father, and they said, oh, I'm so sorry. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said that 2 teens were taken to the hospital, and 3 teens were dead.
Wow.
And I said, well, I need to know whether I need to go to the hospital. If there's 2 teenagers at the hospital, I need to know if my son's there or if he's here. And I told the sheriff, I need to know. And I need to go to the car. And he said, you can't go there. And I said, all right, well, I can tell you what he was wearing. Or look in his wallet. We can't touch him. So I said, I know what he was wearing. So I said he had, a certain colored sweatshirt and pants. So he walked down to the car, and he came back and he told me, I'm sorry, yes, that Timmy was dead. And so I could.
Right. It's a tough story to tell.
So my older son was trying to find my younger son, Danny, because he had walked out of the house earlier that night. And we were trying to find Danny. And so then later my older son showed up at the crash scene and said that we think Danny was in the car as well, that they had probably picked up Danny at the movies. So I had to call that sheriff back over, and I said, I think Danny's in the car as well. So I explained to the sheriff what Danny was wearing. He had a different color sweatshirt on and what shoes and he was wearing. So he walked back down the road a ways and came back, and he told me that Danny was in the car too and that he was dead. So, of course, I fell to the ground and couldn't believe that both my sons were in that car that night.
I can't imagine, guys.
So from out of that, it took me a while to recover, and I just felt that for me to recover and go on with my life, I needed to find a purpose in my life and to stop other teens from realizing what they were doing and to find a purpose. So we asked to speak at the Every 15 Minutes programs at the high schools that have a reenactment of crashes and programs. Right. And Frank Gregory heard us speak, and that's how he asked us to become on the Blue Ribbon Task Force, and that's how all that started.
Dallas, Tom, I can tell you this. I've been in this valley a long time doing stuff with children, as you know, and I have never met an individual, I won't just say kid, that hasn't heard your speech, that you haven't touched. And I was going to say my guess. I'm not going to say my guess. A fact, you save lives.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it because these kids are making better choices listening to you.
Yeah.
And that's for sure. I know it's not going to fix everything, but I know it makes you feel a little bit better because you know you're doing God's work and you're saving lives. And it's your kids did not die in vain.
Yeah. I'm hoping they're up there watching and knowing, that we're doing something there.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
You were talking about the plaque that's in the middle of the Youth Grove, and what it says is so important. And so let me try to read this. Our children are our most precious gifts. They are our sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, loved ones, and friends. Vow today that no more will lose their lives because we drive too fast. No more will die because we drive under the influence. No more will perish because we lapse in attention for just one moment. No more will be lost because of reckless acts on the road. Join us in a cry that no more names will be added to this memorial. That was tough to read. It was.
Well, we set about looking at what we wanted for the youth grove, and we wanted it to be about the kids,
Right.
the youth. We came up with a cutoff age. We wanted it to be the kids of the valley or kids that had a connection with the valley, but we wanted it to be about the kids and for the kids. We wanted to use it as an educational piece. Out of that, the Every 15 Minutes uses that now. The community court uses that. We encourage people at the summer concert to go up there and look at it.
Right.
And mostly the young parents that have young drivers or to-be drivers to go up there and look at, now it's a little over 100 names.
Well, this Evening of Remembrance will have a total of 102
Wow.
stumps
So,
now.
so explain 102 children that lost their lives due to car crashes or some kind of reckless
Traffic
driving.
related, yeah.
Yes.
How many were there when it first started? Do you recall?
I think there was 61 when we started.
61. So we've added quite a few.
Yes.
Yeah. And we like to, use that as part of talking to the kids and the community court, saying, here's 100 kids, almost all of them your age, that most likely said the same thing. Can't happen to me.
Yeah.
You can't possibly look at the youth grove and see 100 names and not think that it can happen to me
you.
and will happen to me if I don't, drive responsible.
And they're all different reasons too. I mean, motorcycle, pedestrians,
Right.
and some were doing the right thing, and some weren't doing the right
What
things.
happened?
I mean,
What happened with yours?
I'm sorry.
What happened with your children?
They were in a car of 5 teens. They were backseat passengers.
Right.
The driver was driving 100 miles an hour.
100 miles an hour.
100 miles an hour.
On a regular.
On
and
a
let's
regular
not get
city
surprised. I see it
street.
happening here all the time because the
Yeah.
speed limit's already 55 in
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
places. So
They thought he was racing another car, but they could never really prove it.
Gotcha.
Lost control. He spun around, hit the center divider, went upside down, and landed on top of another car on the other side, an adult driver. Killed the adult driver instantly. Danny, the younger son, was thrown out. He landed about 60, 70 feet, hit the pavement, was basically killed instantly. The car landed upside down and skidded. And then the middle teenager in the middle was 16. He crawled out of the car and died instantly right there. And Timmy just died in the car. He had a seatbelt on. Danny did not.
Wow, what a powerful story.
and the driver went to jail.
Driver went to jail. They were going to charge him with murder, but he got wind of that, so he pleaded guilty to vehicle manslaughter.
Gotcha.
He was charged to 8 years in prison and only served 4.
And he's going to have to live with that forever.
Yeah.
And not mean, obviously, that's not going to make it any better, but he still has to go to bed every night knowing what he did.
Yeah.
Now everyone knows why this is such a powerful memorial. What a powerful memorial. And we're going to have to take a break here, but when we come back from the break,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about how people can go to the Youth Grove, because you're coming up on a special Evening of Remembrance, and
Yes.
that's a very powerful thing that
Yes.
people can actually take their kids to.
Yes.
Yes.
This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We'll be back with Alice and Tom.